down at Bournemouth last night.
Very
Of
good,
course.
yeah.
Really
Very good.
watchable game. I wonder, given that balance and without in any sense ignoring Aston Villa, because they're in it, whether it is now City's target to be within touch of Arsenal when the two meet in the middle of April. If they can make that the pivotal game somehow.
That's why they'll be annoyed. Yeah. I think if they could just hang on their shoulder, I mean, even 6 points, but if 4 points off them with 8 games to go, 7 games to go, that would be really, really interesting. Yeah. And Pep Guardiola can start to really turn the heat up. But they've got to be within touching distance of them. I said, I think, in my podcast the other day, that I think Arsenal will win the title. I think that City will go in front of them at times, maybe. They might catch them up. But I just think that Arsenal have got so much. I think yesterday at Bournemouth was the perfect example of that. You know, they go a goal down. Gabriel has that sort of pass across the box. But then the firepower that they bring off the bench, Jesus, Saka and Trossard, I think they brought off the bench, didn't they, in the second half? That's going to do real damage. When you can bring players on of that quality, replacing players that are already on the pitch of quality, and you're going at sort of Bournemouth's defence with, that are tiring and fatiguing as the game goes on, you're going to win a lot of matches. The amount of times that great teams win with their substitutes and their sort of difference makers off the bench is so important, and Arsenal have got that. They really have. I mean, Havertz is back as well.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, Gary, you mentioned the 3 subs, so that's 6 forward players who played for Arsenal yesterday. Eze didn't get on, and Havertz wasn't even in the playing party.
Yeah.
I mean, that is formidable strength, isn't it?
It is, and that's what they're going to have going down the home straight. They're going to have options, and what Arsenal are going to be able to do, I mean, City can do it as well. You think when Doku comes on the pitch today, you think that he's got that sort of ability to do things. But what Arsenal are going to be able to do is be 1-1, 1-0 down, and be able to throw on 3 or 4 players that are just going to completely transform the game and the momentum of a match. And they're well set up, and they're definitely better defensively than Manchester City. I look at that City back 4 at the end. That would concern me. That's not going to win a title. So Guardiola and Diaz, maybe you could get there, but I'm not sure that 4 at the end are going to get anywhere near a title. They're going to concede chances and goals, and you're going to be able to get at them. So that's a big problem. If Diaz and sort of Guardiola are out for 4 weeks now, what does that do to City? So, yeah, Arsenal look like they've really invested well behind that sort of top back 4 that they've got. Timber, Calafiore, Gabriel and Saliba. You've now got Nketiah, you've got Lewis Skelly, you've got Ben White, and the missed one, there's Mosquera. So you've got basically 2 back 4s. I think the second back 4 of Arsenal is almost as good as the first back 4 of City. That's how good that second back 4 is. So that's a real strong point. It's difficult to see how Arsenal can't really do it from here with the power that they've got and the strength and the sort of reinforcements.
The first Gary Neville podcast of 2026, and it comes actually at the end of what has been a very newsworthy first weekend of 2026 in the Premier League. We're at the Etihad Stadium, where Manchester City have had the maximum points they really needed, Gary, snatched away from them right at the very end.
Yes, and 1-0 up, City, no doubt they could have seen that game out, but with Diaz off the pitch, Guardiola off the pitch, Kusanov and Ake at centre-back coming on, and then you've got Nunez and O'Reilly, you just felt, along with how Chelsea changed at half-time, that there could be some danger coming City's way. I always think that there are certain sort of chants that you hear in grounds that are more of a chant of, come on, we're going to lose this or we're going to draw this, and there are a few come-on Cities. Probably 3 that I heard before Chelsea scored that were quite clear signals to the players on the pitch, to us, because we could feel it up here that you need to go and get a second. I think I said it with 20 minutes to go. If City don't get a second here, I've got a feeling that they're not going to win the game. And Chelsea were really dangerous on the counter-attack in the second half. The big question was whether Chelsea had that goal in them. Where was the bite going to come from? Because I said it very early on in the game, they're a nice team. I mean, Neto, you said, I think, towards the end that he was getting further into the match in the second half and he was bright, but he's bloody frustrating me like you wouldn't believe. And he's a smidgen away from being an Eden Hazard, but he's never going to be an Eden Hazard because he hasn't got that sort of. Eden Hazard had that sort of beautiful sort of glide about him, but he's also a killer, and you've got to be a killer in those positions, and Neto's not, and just really frustrating in the second half. But I think Enzo moving forward the boy Santos coming on alongside Reece James, who was excellent in midfield. So they had Santos and Reece James a little bit deeper. It meant that basically Enzo was a bit further forward on that sort of left channel. That was a big threat. I thought Delap was a handful when he came on as well. So, look, they got what they deserved in the end, Manchester City, for not killing the game off. Chelsea deserved a point in a way because of how they reacted, but they should have been killed off by Manchester City. Pep Guardiola and those City players will need a little bit of picking up tonight. They'll go home. We've all been there as football players and thought, oh, that's a bad one. That's a bad one. I think, you get a point away at Sunderland, you can sort of half accept it, and then you win today and you sort of think, right, okay, no problems. We're going into the sort of, still got 18 games to go, but you wouldn't want to be 6 points behind. Still a long way to go, still can be retrieved. But that was just a little dig in the ribs tonight, one that basically will hurt Manchester City and Pep Guardiola. And it's of their own causing, because in the first half they let the game nicely drift towards half-time. They got a little bit more threat in the game. About 10 minutes before half-time they got the goal. But go and get the second. Go and get the second goal. They could have got it before half-time. They didn't do. And then they should have gone and got it in that first 25, 30 minutes of the second half. I think Foden played quite a few sloppy passes. I don't think they were sort of really ruthless in the final bit. Cherky, Bernardo Silva, Foden, Haaland, Doku, all of them guilty of just not really doing that final bit that they know how to do so well, which is kill teams off. And once they weren't killing teams off, Chelsea had a counter-attack on them. And Chelsea's counter-attack in the end has got them through the game. And what a good moment for Callum McFarlane. But for Manchester City, they'll be gutted tonight. They really will.
Have you got any comment, big picture-wise, to make on Chelsea and the week they've had and the change of coach and so on?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a good end to this week for Chelsea from where it is. When you lose a manager, it's always harrowing. No one likes to see a manager lose his job or a manager give his job up, however you want to read it at Chelsea. It's been coming for 2 or 3 weeks. I think he did a press conference, didn't he, 2 or 3 weeks ago, where he talked sort of...
His worst 48 hours.
Yeah, his worst 48 hours, subliminal messages, reading into things, almost... you wouldn't. It's almost worse when managers do that, because then you're left wondering who is he having a go at. But what you know is it isn't going to end well. That's the thing you do absolutely know when these things start to happen. So I wasn't surprised at all by Maresca being out of a job. I think that what's happened in the last couple of weeks is that you see a club that's got very little experience in their ownership of Premier League football. They've only been in it for a couple of years. Then they bring in sort of sporting directors who are sort of what would be fresh sporting directors, should we say. They get rid of Marina, they get rid of Petr Cech. They obviously then sort of lose Thomas Tuchel, very experienced operators. And then you've got young players on the pitch and you've got young players in the dugout, young coaches in the dugout. So it's just almost in some ways quite inexperienced all the way through the club. And with that, you get inconsistency and you get things like you see from Chelsea where they can be really sensational in parts of matches and you think, I really like them. Such a nice team to watch. But then you think, where is that fierceness, that ruthlessness, that spine, that physicality, that mental strength that's going to get this club from being a really talented club that spent a lot of money into a club that's going to win things? And there's a big jump yet in that respect, because that team that we've seen out there today plays really good football at times. Some of the football is silky, it's smooth, but they're really short, and everyone knows where they're really short. They're short in goal, they're short at centre-half, even though I thought the centre-half did well today, and they're short up top. But they're going to be like this for a bit. I think the policy of signing young players is fine. Who wouldn't want to see young players signed by a football club that have got, many years in front of them and loads of potential? But you do need to have some experience, and that team needs 3 30-year-olds who've been around the block and know how to win as a minimum. Your squad really should be made up of 5 or 6 30-year-olds, 5 or 6 probably under 23s, and then 12 in the middle between 23 and sort of 29, 30 that are your real core. Basically still got a lot of experience. That is a championship winning squad and profile of it. What Chelsea have at the moment is an average age of 23 the other day, wasn't it? Well, look, you genuinely can't win anything with kids. That's a fact. I'm going to say it now.
Said one of the original kids.
I'm going to say it now after 29 years. You cannot win anything with kids. Alan Hansen was absolutely right. You need experienced players in your spine, and then you might be able to put some kids alongside it. So for me, I think they need some experience in and around the club. if you've got young players out on the pitch, I also think you need an experienced manager so they can look up to him, a bit of grey hair. And it looks like they're going to appoint another young manager again. And I just think young players, young manager, young players need senior sort of authority and experience around them and guidance to know how to win. Because this Chelsea team, they're still getting into the Champions League. They're still winning trophies. They're still doing well. But with the money that's been spent, there's an expectation from the owners, I think, that they're going to win the Premier League and they're going to win big trophies quite often. They're not going to do that until they get some more experience. So, look, it is where it is. They've got some real talent in the squad. There is that of no doubt. But there's a long way to go before we can say that they're going to be challenging for the title, which is where I always rate Chelsea. You know, I played against some of the greatest Chelsea teams that won titles, and that's the benchmark that's been set. That's where Chelsea are, and for City today. A bit, you know, Pep Guardiola's saying to them right now, probably picking them up, because I mean, a few of them actually fell on the floor at the end, weren't they, in that far corner, which is unusual for a group of experienced players that have been around the block and won leagues. But there's a couple of them fell to the ground because they thought they knew that was a bad one. But yeah, I'm sure they'll come back. It's been a hefty period over Christmas, and but it's a boost for Arsenal that today.
After that,
Pep, a real setback, especially when you were so close to seeing it through. What do you think in the end cost you?
One action and score a goal. So we had a lot of actions with 2 against 1. We played a fantastic game, so for the result.
Did you particularly enjoy, or were you particularly pleased with the first 45 minutes?
90 minutes. For 95, we played so good all the game because it's normal second half they make a step up. They were more aggressive. We got normally chances not like that, and they make a step up. It was more difficult. We have 2 actions in the beginning of the game because we lose easy balls with Tijani, with Mateus, but the rest we have chances in the right moments, you know, to close the game. And at the end, we couldn't do it. And at the end, when 1-0, everything can happen with the quality that they have.
Did you feel though, as the game wore on, and perhaps it's down to the intensity and the physicality of the schedule as much as anything, that the team started to suffer a little bit? You obviously lost a couple of players to injuries during the game.
Yeah, suffer for the injuries, yeah, but not the game. The game was not suffer.
Okay. How are the 2 players, Diaz and Guardiola?
It doesn't look good. We'll see next days.
Yeah, and you said before the game, the squad's really, we're suffering. You know, we're in trouble, I think, with your words before the game.
Last season, repeat the season again, yeah.
So does that feel like it's really been accentuated by what's happened today? Not just the players you've lost injured, but like the pressure on the rest of the players who are playing more and more minutes?
Yeah, it's where it is. It's where it is. Yeah, we knew it. When you have all the squad, you can compete and rotate, but now, you know, it's a situation, but we'll have enough energy to get back.
Yeah. Do you worry, though, about the schedule ahead?
I cannot change it.
No.
The schedule is where it is.
Any chance of players back for Wednesday?
Right now, I don't know. I don't think so, but right now, I don't know. I didn't ask to the doctors yet.
Okay. Would it change transfer plans, potentially? Players in, players out? It feels like you need players in now.
No idea. No idea.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right.
Frustration mainly comes from the chances that they didn't take, Daniel, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, he'll be really disappointed because they were really good all over the pitch. You know, they controlled Chelsea specifically in the first half. They were very good in this channel specifically as well. And they were causing all sorts of issues for them, and you're thinking, that touch is magnificent. You're thinking, you're used to Man City being clinical in front of goal. You're used to, but these last couple of weeks now, we're seeing that reliance on Haaland. You know, you get a goal from Reinders today, but when you're expecting the squad to be able to score goals, the other guys aren't delivering on a weekly basis, and that's potentially the concern for him. You know what you're going to get from Haaland, isn't it? We're talking about, it's only 3 games. That's absolutely nothing. That's normal for every striker in the Premier League to go through a 3-game blip, but collectively as a team, you need the other players to step up to score goals. Otherwise, it's going to be a tall task.
So when you've not scored in 3, what would you do differently? I mean, Haaland's a different...
He doesn't need to do anything different. Absolutely nothing. Everything he does is right. He's in the right positions. He's not shy. He's not scared to continue to make the runs. He wants to take the chances. Certain times when you go for a blip, sometimes you might, certain guys, they hide and they go, I'm not bursting a gut to get in that area. I'm not trying to put my body on the line to ensure I'm getting chances. Today, he had probably more space than he's used to having. We saw one chance where he sort of ran through the whole team and almost scored, and we don't see that.
But do you change anything when you're not scoring?
I don't think he will, and I don't think he needs to. I think it's about continuing to do what you're doing. Your luck will change, and it's not necessarily luck. You saw today, hit the post. He was in areas. He created big problems. It was just it didn't go for him. I fully expect him to end up with 30-odd goals or whatever it may be, and we talk about it now and we go, oh well, he still ended up with 30+ goals. So I think 3 games is absolutely nothing for a player of his calibre.
Funny how these things work, isn't it? If you go back to when people were questioning Arsenal like a month ago, it's because they'd drawn at Sunderland and then drew at home to 10-man Chelsea. And now there's a 6-point gap at the top, and people will be talking about where the title race is at. Because Manchester City, albeit have drawn at home to Chelsea, and they drew at Sunderland.
I don't think this game is league-defining. I think I said it on Thursday as well. Arsenal play, Man City in April. That is going to be one of the games, and there's going to be chops and changes throughout the season. Some games you think, we're going to win here, we're going to win there. It doesn't happen like that. And you've got to give credit to Chelsea for that, because they put up a fight. They made it difficult, at times today. And, yeah, Man City will be kicking themselves, but you have to give Chelsea credit, especially what they've been going through with having no manager.
Yeah. I mean, it's on the defensive side. You said before the game, you talked about on the counter-attack sometimes looking a little bit vulnerable. We saw that almost today with the goal that they scored, where it was in a one-on-one position in the wide areas. Are those some of the things you want to see them change moving forward if they are to challenge and actually go on and win the title?
What in terms of Manchester
City defensively in those transition moments where they're sort of being vulnerable in counter?
Well, it's very difficult at times, because you've got Nico O'Reilly, who's left back, who's a midfielder. You've got Mateus Nunes, who's a right back, but he's a midfielder as well. So if you talk about defensive instincts, it's difficult. They're doing so well because Man City always dominate the ball. So in terms of getting on the ball in midfield and playing, but they're not natural defenders.
Although the question I would then ask to that is, how long do you have to have played in that position before you are that position now, as opposed to what you formerly were?
Well, it depends how your team play, though, doesn't it? I think with the way Man City play, they dominate the ball, so you're left exposed a lot of the time. I think when we talk about Nico Gonzalez, why it took him a while to get up to speed, because he's replacing Rodri, who mopped up all the counter-attacks. You come into the game now, as a defender, I used to love that one-on-one defending. That was my game. I used to love it. But these players, especially as midfielders, at times, because Man City sort of starve you from the ball and push you back, you then become in a one-on-one situation where their attributes at times don't suit that.
That's why when they had a Kyle Walker, I'm not saying that they need one, but that's when it amplifies that individual one-on-one defender, and you sort of see the attribute jump off the screen, like, oh, he's really fast, he's great in one-on-one actions. Whereas now, they are ball dominant, so they're rarely in these moments, so you don't get to see that type of action where, Gusto goes past Nico O'Reilly. You rarely see that. You rarely see so much space for a one-on-one moment against Man City.
So given they are ball dominant then, now it's kind of moving on from the defensive problems that they've got today with Guardiola and Diaz, and looking at who they might be bringing in Semenyo. Given that they are ball dominant, but given that they have Foden and Cherky, Reinders operating in the channel, Doku was on the bench. If Semenyo comes in, how do you both think they are going to use him?
Probably high and wide. So
that would then change the Foden Cherky dynamic.
Yeah, maybe, because historically, you can talk about Man City's wingers are high and wide, like a Mahrez and a Sterling and a Sané, etc., etc. Now, the wides are coming in the number 10s, and they're using the fullbacks, Nunes and O'Reilly, to go high and wide to them. It's a different way to approach the game. But if you had someone like Doku on one wing and Semenyo on the other, then you start with wingers high and wide, and you get Cherky and Foden in central areas.
Yeah, I think when you look at them today, they're not predictable, but they're a very... We move and we advance the ball in a specific type of way. They've got similar players in Foden and Cherky in there that kind of do similar things and pick up similar pockets, and you've got Reinders, who seems to be the one to make the runs in behind for them, similar to what maybe a Gundogan would have done in previous years. So I think for me, similar to what Mike has just said there, is that Semenyo is going to be that guy that when there's balls coming in the box, He's going to be at that back post scoring goals. He's a goal scorer.
Yeah.
What I love about his game so much, his work rate. He's always working back. He's going to give them a guy who's goal-driven, who can create his own shots. If you look at him statistically last year, he was top 5 in shots taken in the league playing for Bournemouth, which means I have the ability to create a chance for myself. And now I'm going to a team who's ball dominant. Yes, he will be facing teams that are deeper, so it poses him a different problem. But we're talking about a guy who the manager can go, look, when the ball's in this area, I need you at that back post making those runs. And that's how Raheem Sterling's in the 100 club, because you get those goals playing for a club like this who are ball dominant. You're going to be in the box and you're going to have goals at the back stick in the 6-yard box. That's the kind of thing that I'd like to see.
These are City's last 8 Premier League results, and that ruthlessness we saw in that last run just halted a little bit in the last 2 back-to-back draws. Interesting to hear from Bernardo Silva saying, no point looking at Arsenal if we don't do our job.
Yeah, definitely, because you look at that results, and arguably anyone in the league would want them results, but it isn't good enough to kind of emulate what Arsenal are doing. So it is frustrating, and it is worse, especially when you concede in the last minute. But yeah, as long as they try and get back onto winning ways in the next game, and again, it's going to be difficult because now they have to wait for. Not only do they have to beat Arsenal, they have to wait for them to drop points elsewhere. So they've made the job more difficult. But if there's any team that can catch them and believe they can catch them, it would be Man City.
Yeah, he described the way in which they played and said that they just really struggled to find that final moment, the last pass or the final finish.
Well, I think he summed it up well. I think he was out there. The game did get stretched, and there's a team that when you're leading and you haven't put a team to the sword and get that second goal, then you're concerned, really, because it was too open. Chelsea had a lot of space, particularly down there, Chelsea's left side. They kept changing the ball out, and there was no midfield opposing for City, and they had far too much time to turn on the ball and get at the back four. So, yeah, it became open, and City didn't use the space as well as they did when they had a lack of space, funny enough, in the first half. So I think, I think they let themselves down there a little bit. But I think what he's saying is absolutely right, and that's what Pep would be saying in the dressing room. We've got to now concern ourselves of getting back on the horse. Still not a bad run. They're unbeaten for so many games. Yeah. But the problem is 6 points now, it takes the pressure off Arsenal. They can afford to draw a couple. And when they play that pivotal game, when they play Arsenal at home, they needed to be sort of 2 points away, breathing down Arsenal's neck. Now, will they get that into that position? That is the key to the whole winning of the Premier League, I feel. And Arsenal now, it's Arsenal's to lose.
Yeah, but also that game, they needed to go into that game and Arsenal feeling they can't afford to lose, which they can now. They can go into that game, lose that game, and still be 3 points ahead. So that's the kind of pressure it's taken up Arsenal going forward.
Yeah, just wondering about your own experience having been in a position like this before with Manchester City. I mean, you both said that run, anyone would love to have that run, but I guess it also shows us the standards City have, the fact that they know what it takes to get it over the line, that they look so disappointed. They look as if they've lost. I know it was a late goal, but that is what the faces look like.
Yeah, definitely. It always feels like that, especially when it's late on. But from my experience, we were more points behind the team that had more experience than Arsenal, so it can be done. But again, Arsenal, you would rather be in Arsenal's position because you have the points on the board and you have the opportunity to go on and win the league. But if there's one team that can catch Arsenal, it will be City.
Yeah, and
it's also a time, sorry, Jules, it's also a time over Christmas and New Year. So many games are packed in. They haven't lost a game. It isn't like they've lost one and drawn one and, it's catastrophe. They'll go again. They've got a lot on their plate and obviously... that's where Pep, Doku didn't play. We thought he might start, but there's a rest for him for some reason, and then he'll go again in the midweek. So you've got to, as a manager, you've got to rest players and have the energy right.
Yeah, they go again midweek against Brighton. Arsenal play Liverpool. Big ones to come. But for match week 20, from Glenn and from Jolien and myself, we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Arsenal reactions for you now. We'll hear from Declan Rice, one of the goal scorers. But first, here's Mikel Arteta.
Put ourselves into a very difficult position in the manner that you concede the goal and then it's a big mountain to climb. But I think the team showed a lot of maturity. What Gavi's done after that mistake is remarkable. I mean, when somebody has to show leadership and personality, I think probably is the biggest representative of that in the team. And then the team slowly grow, started to control and dominate the game much better, scored 2 very great goals, and at the end we managed to win the game.
You beat me to it. I was going to ask you about the character of Gabriel to respond to that so quickly, get up there, get the goal and show that mentality.
That's great. And Declan the same. So Declan was very struggling in the last few days, and he pushed and pushed and pushed. He made himself available. We didn't know for how long. At the end, he played 96 minutes, scored 2 goals, and he was one of the best players on that pitch. So that's the mentality that we need from all of us.
Just finally, you've got more points and scored more goals than Arsenal did in the Invincible season. So things are going pretty well.
We need to continue to go. We're still in January. We have 9 games in these months, and we know what we played already before. Game by game, play with that desire and attitude, and game by game we'll be fine.
We come out in the second half, we made it really, really good for us, and obviously to get the 2-goal lead was good, but again, we let in a sloppy goal. Great finish, but we could have done better on the second ball, so we'll look at that, but the main thing is 3 points and keep building momentum. I think that's the biggest thing for us. Having
seen you score quite a few cracking goals, I was quite surprised to learn that it's the first time you've scored 2 in a league game for the first time.
I know, that's crazy. I've been in situations before where I've scored 1 in the game when I wanted to go on and score another. And obviously it hasn't happened, but today it has, and it's a crucial one because at Christmas time, the fixtures come thick and fast, and to be able to help the team out with 2 goals is massive because we're going to need everyone chipping in at different points. So I'm happy I could help the team today to victory. Look, we're in a good spot if we can keep everyone fit and keep rotating and everyone be on the same wavelength. I'm sure good things will happen, but there's a long way to go, and we just need to stay focused on ourselves and keep winning matches. So we'll keep doing that.
Declan Rice with the first Premier League brace, talking about it there, and also saying game by game, a lot of matches still to come. Today, there's a lot of talk about his reputation first, though, and how he keeps enhancing it.
Oh, without a doubt. And what sensible interview as well after the game. He scored 2 goals. He could have got carried away, but no, he keeps everything on. It's all about the team, and he's a team player. Every manager probably in the world would have him in his team. He's so consistent. He can play numerous positions, and a great example for children coming through, wanting to play, wanting to be professional footballers. What a great example he is. Terrific player. He always was at West Ham, and you just felt with his move to Arsenal, he was going to grow as a player. Now he's playing in England. He's a shoe-in for England as well. Just going to get better and better, this lad, and a really good professional.
Yeah, pleasure. I've worked with him international stage, so yeah, he's a credit to the profession. Loves the profession, takes it so serious, but I doesn't think he gets enough credit as a footballer because technically he's outstanding. We've seen that in numerous games, and again, his ability to recognise pretty much every situation and what it needs and what it's called for, and here, as soon as it falls, he recognises who's in possession, where he needs to be, and then the composure he showed in front of goal. And Declan Rice is a credit to Arsenal and England.
Critical goals as well with the game at 1-1 at that stage. And then, in the end, they did need that second goal from him because it's the one that won the game ultimately.
Well, they did. And for Arsenal, he plays in this sort of forward position. They've got a different player, whoever it may be, in the deeper position. They allow him to get in and around the penalty area and in the box, like he's got these 2 goals, for example. The interesting thing for me is he's such a good player. He's going to play for England in the World Cup. Is he going to play in that position? I don't think so, because we've got loads of really talented number 10s that I think Tuchel will play. So I think we're going to have to see him play a little bit deeper in an England shirt, but he can play there or he can play in different positions and still be able to affect the game in a positive way. So it's a lovely, thing to have for any manager, but for Arsenal at the moment, he's loving the fact that he's been released and he's getting into the box or in and around the D where he's going to get his goals.
And he's certainly one of the leaders in that team. So too is Gabriel Magalhaes. I think the last 2 games have shown since his return just how important he is to the side. Yeah,
vitally important, not just the goals, but his defending. I know you're disappointed with how he conceded, and they conceded the first goal, but the character he's shown to get back into the game, then equalise, and then just forget about it. And that's what top players do. They forget about mistakes, and he's shown that. And the finish, I know we're just going to say he's just scored, but it's an outstanding finish. You would see strikers with not this much composure and ability, because he can easily slash at that. He can go left, right. There's not much of the goal to actually aim at, but Glenn, you can speak on that technique.
That is a great finish. It fell on his favoured left foot, but that was all about the mental, staying calm. He'd given a goal away, and you could panic. You could be so desperate to make up for that mistake that you make a pig's ear of that. that technique. He didn't. He kept a cool, calm head, and he finished. I've never met the guy. I've never had a spoke, but he's a winner. You can tell he's a winner. If you're playing tiddlywinks, he would want to beat you, and he's got that attitude. And I think he's a fantastic. When he's not playing for Arsenal, there's a massive hole there that needs to be filled, and he showed his character yesterday.
Just looking at those numbers there, the most goals scored by a defender since Gabriel made his debut in the Premier League. He is the top scoring defender ahead of some defenders who we're used to seeing goals from as well. 20, he scored against Aston Villa in midweek and he scored again. As you said, it shows his mentality because the difference between the ball that he gave away, which led to the opening goal, and the equalising goal, which came from him, was just 5 minutes. Yeah,
and again, just easy to get rid of that in your memory bank and move on with the game, and he's shown that. But that record there is outstanding. Only just the amount of goals, but 20 goals is a lot as a defender. So to be consistently a threat, and that is always a difficult thing, especially for opposing defenders.
There's a few strikers might would like that amount of goals, but no, he's a threat from set plays. We know that. It always seems to land on his head, doesn't it? But he's shown there with the technique of that goal that he's got good feet as well.
So another victory for Arsenal then, and it means that they are 6 points clear ahead of Manchester City, who dropped points today, and Aston Villa, who got back to winning ways after losing at the Emirates. You said something very interesting, that it was a very sensible interview from Declan Rice, but there has been a lot more of a subdued nature, especially around wins like this, compared to perhaps last season when they were criticised for over-celebrating. And there's definitely a sense of they've been here, they know what it's going to take. They're just game by game seems to be coming up in every post-match interview.
Yeah, I think that's what they've learned. In life, you learn things, you know, and if they've come close season after season, and you've got to learn from that. And I think that's the thing, take every game as it comes. It's an old cliche in football, but I think they've learned a hard lesson that way, to say, look, it's all about them 3 points that are available. We're not worrying about City, we're not worrying about anyone else, and that takes the pressure off you a little bit. And I think that's what they've got to do, because, yeah, they might have had a different head-on. The mindset was different in those seasons, and I think they've learned. And the new players that have come, Eza, for instance, has come and he's saying, hey, listen, we've learned to keep this. He scored a hat-trick the other week, didn't he? And his interview was very low-key. It was it's all about the team. The team comes first. And that's why you think, you know, they're going to go very, very close, if not win it this year.
Do you share that sentiment as well, just hearing some of the post-match and the way they've been speaking this season compared to perhaps seasons before? Yeah, definitely. They seem more assured of where they are as a team, as a club. And they're building momentum and building a lot more confidence within the group, and they've added to that. Eze is one of them. But they have a lot more belief as a team now, as a squad. Like, they've suffered injuries in positions that we've all questioned and thought that it would derail them. It hasn't. So that just breeds confidence. And when you're part of a group and you all believe in each other, then it only can lead to positive things, and they're doing that. And they're not getting carried away, because they've been in this situation before where the outcome hasn't been winning the league, and you learn from them. I think also they've got a real key player coming back in Havertz. Havertz. I think Havertz will have a big say in that running. He'll be fit, he'll be 100% fit, and he'll be used. Yeah, they'll need to recycle, because obviously the Champions League will have if they get knocked out of the Champions League, I'd have them winning the Premier League. I really would. But they'll want to go all the way. You don't see that could potentially derail them, I think, because when everything's going so well, the first thing that doesn't go well, it could have a knock-on effect in other competitions. Yeah, they'll want to go all the way, and momentum is a big thing, and confidence. But I think it will take a lot out of them if they go all the way to the final, if you like, and lose. They'd have probably looked back and go, if we'd have got knocked out in the quarter-final, we wouldn't have, the rails wouldn't have come off. So it's a chicken and the egg. As a footballer and a club, you want to do well in every game. But I think if they were to get knocked out, I don't think that would hurt. I think it would give them that real emphasis, that energy to say, right, we haven't got a midweek game here, a big Champions League game. We can now really dissect how we're going to play at the weekend. And that I think would get them over the line. I really do. You have to move on, but maybe just a yes or no answer here then. Havertz ahead of Gyökeres for you? Yes, without a doubt. OK, well, from goal scorers to goals then, and this one perhaps goal of the season.
Open game second half when really in overtime, bang, make it very difficult. At least keep your back four intact. And I don't think that goal's ever scored.
Yeah, as you said, it's not Pep's way. So then let's get some post-match reactions, because here is Pep Guardiola.
You were completely in control of the game at half-time, and they changed shape a little bit, and the momentum of the game changed a bit.
Well, not agree, but it's okay. They score a goal, that's why you analyze the results. So of course, they make a step up, we make them more intense in the pressing. They had the chances because we lost 2 balls in the beginning of the second half, but if you believe they shift the momentum, okay, you maybe knows better than me.
No, I don't know better than you, but I felt they improved in the second half.
Yeah. It's a world champion team, you know? It's not academy players there, so it's a top-class players, normal that make 90 minutes against that team control is so difficult, but we make a game to... We missed just in the second half, the actions that we had, the 4 or 5 actions, the 2-1, the 3-2. Our talent players, you know, to finish the games, they could not do that.
Obviously, it's a bit of a cliche in football that 1-0 is a dangerous lead, and you needed the second goal ultimately, and you didn't get it.
Yeah, but it is what it is. So it's not about expecting goals or what would you have. So when you talk about all the stats, all the departments that we can analyze, one is how effective you are, you know, in the final third. But in general, how we defend, how we run, how we play was extraordinary.
People will say that 6 points is a big gap, but there's still half a season to play. I mean, so much can change.
We recover people and we'll see next Wednesday.
Yeah, anything can happen. If anyone knows, it's Pep Guardiola. How frustrated is he?
Yeah, he will be frustrated, but he sees the game differently to how we watch it. The so-called opportunities in the final third, the actions that we probably don't recognise as chances, well, Glenn might recognise as chances, he'll be frustrated with them. And he's always about the performance. Again, the result obviously is vitally important, but he's always looking at the performance and what the momentum and the consistencies of players, and he tends to analyse it pretty accurate most weeks. So there'll be a level of frustration due to the lateness of Chelsea goal.
What did you make of that interview and kind of his level of frustration, his mood?
Yeah, there was a little bit of frustration there, and I think if he analyses and looks at the second half, it's not like he's actually portrayed it. I don't think they had the chances that he thinks they had. They got themselves in some good positions. If the right pass had been made, possibly they might have had another goal and killed the game off. But that isn't they didn't create them chances. They were in good positions, but they fouled. Whereas first half they looked like they were picking the right pass, and they ended up having good chances. But you know, I think Callum McFarland, his first game, I think at half time he did his job. He changed the shape a little bit in midfield. Enzo was allowed to go and play a little bit higher and consequently do his pressing higher up, but then get into the box from there. Palmer was certainly left, that we spoke about half-time, to go and roam a little bit more, get on the ball a bit more. And Gusto came over to the right. So there was a lot of changes in the shape. And then his subs that come on worked for him. Delap played exceedingly well when he come on, used the ball well, was a threat. And, yeah, I thought they deserved the point in the end, Chelsea. Because of the way they played in the second half and the changes that they made.
Yeah, Pep Guardiola was asked about those changes and the momentum shift. He didn't really kind of agree with that, although City did only have 1 shot on target in the second half. Did you feel that they dealt well enough with those changes and the shifts from Chelsea?
Well, obviously not. They conceded and it led to them drawing, but like Glenn said, I didn't think they created enough opportunities to get shots off. They made poor decisions, poor passes, and that inevitably gives the other team confidence and momentum, and there's tends to be chances or moments in games when you can feel momentum shifting, and there was a couple of them, especially the one where I think it was Hetu made a defensive tackle, and all of a sudden now they kind of got the backs up against the wall and feel they can go on and get something out of the game, and you've got to give credit to the staff at Chelsea. They recognised what the changes needed to be and they made them.
Yeah, but even at that point, I think at 80 minutes I said to both of you, how is this game still 1-0? Given all the chances that City had, it was overwhelming. We saw, Haaland hitting the post, but there were other moments.
Well, I tell you what was interesting in the game second half for me. The reason teams bank up and they play really deep and you get bodies like they get behind the ball and they make it difficult for City is because if you give City space on a football pitch, they will punish you. Now, second half, it became very open. There was a lot of space for City, but they didn't capitalise on that. I was very surprised about them. with the way they played. They're used to having a team to break down and be patient and circulate the ball and that. It wasn't a game like that second half, Jolie.
Transition. No, it was very
like
transitional.
a basketball game. It was very and there was too much space for Chelsea. If you're a leading the team, I just felt nearer the end of the game, you've got to think, how do we hang on to this game? We haven't put them to the sword. We haven't got the second goal or the third goal. They were playing as if they were 3-0 up. Do we shut the door? Do we shut the door and get the points this way? Because it's a long, hard season in the Premier League. You can't play the same way all day, every game, for every minute, in an open, attacking, creative way. You've sometimes just got to tuck it in a little bit.
But again, maybe he's in the back of his mind, and he sees the game differently. They did try to do that against Arsenal, and they conceded. So maybe he's thinking, if I do that and we concede, I'm going against my own principles as a manager. So he's probably thought, no, we'll continue to play the same way. And in no disrespect to Glenn, it's easy to sit here and say they should have done this and they get another outcome. But when they have done it in previous games, the outcome has been conceding and points dropped.
I think Arsenal away, and your minutes from winning the game is the right thing, what they did. And I think there's certain things, it's horses for courses football. It's making the right decision as a player, on the ball, making that right decision, or as a manager, you're making the right decisions at the right time. And Pep's Pep, and I admire him for that. He wants to go and attack and play and let his players go and play. But if he just keeps the back four intact, they don't lose that game, which is massive in the context of winning another Premier League, with chasing Arsenal. The pressure now is off Arsenal.
Well, you're saying keep the back four intact. They did lose a key member of that back four through injury. Did that, I suppose with hindsight, we'll say they then conceded. How much did that affect them?
Well, 2. They lost both set of halves. Yeah. Had to change that. And it's probably the most difficult position to come on and get the rhythm of the game. I think forward players are tend to used to coming on and playing 20 minutes. So as a centre-back, you're sitting down and you're not warming up and you're just waiting for, and God forbid, there's an injury. So it's difficult.
Even more so. Protect them.
Yeah.
Give them protection. They've come on and, as you say, they're cold and it's a difficult position. 2 of you to come on and play, and Chelsea were coming at them as well. So even more so for me, protect them. Give them some solidness about them.
I know there is still a lot of football to be played and it can change week for week. Arsenal have Liverpool, for example. They are 6 points clear now. Manchester City playing Brighton in midweek. How damaging do you think this is?
I'd say damaging, frustrating, disappointing, but damaging. I don't think they can afford to drop points before Arsenal again. I think then it becomes like too big of a gap, because you're asking a team that's playing so well balanced and in Arsenal to drop more points than they have done all season in a shorter space of games. So I think it's vitally important that they do not drop points before Arsenal.
There's still a lot of points to be played for, halfway through the season. I always say the Premier League, I've always said it's like a Grand National, and at the moment Man City have hit a couple of fences. They've hit a couple of fences, but they're still going. The jockey hasn't fallen off yet. And there's such a long way to go, and they'll want to be there or thereabouts, putting some pressure on Arsenal. They've eased the pressure off Arsenal. But if they have a little bit of a Arsenal, then City have got to take advantage then, before they play them. It's a must that they've got to beat them at home whenever they play. And I can't think when they are playing them actually in the league, but at the end of the day, they want to be breathing down their neck. Now, Arsenal are in the pole position. It's Arsenal's at the moment, still a long way to go. It's theirs to lose. So the pressure's on Arsenal.
They play each other in April at the Etihad Stadium. That's that game that everyone is looking forward to. Plenty still to come before then. As you mentioned, the jockey is still on. The greatest soap opera in the world will carry on until that showdown in April. Core memory for him. What a day in his football career. First Premier League game, he leaves the Etihad with the point.
Absolutely. You can tell by his face he was brimming inside. He was so enjoying that interview. It's different. They earned a point, and I think they deserved it. But he said what he said at half-time. They had to change things. He identified. We didn't go out to play that deep. He said, but sometimes, I think it was probably O'Reilly was pushed on really wide, and then they had to adjust that second half, and they took a player off, and then they rejiggled. Santos did well holding that position, which released Enzo. And then Enzo can press as well. See, he can give you that little bit of a box threat, but he can actually get at people really aggressively. And they played a lot further up the pitch, and it became an open game, which suited Chelsea in the second half.
That is quite impressive. I mean, before the game, we kind of all said that it was a free hit for him in a way because he'd been asked to do a job, his first ever Premier League game in charge, and it was this game against the club where he was a manager in the academy at one point himself. The changes that Glenn spoke about, what we just heard from him saying in the interview is he adapted to a situation, he made some changes and it paid dividends. That's impressive that he got the players to kind of adapt to and see his vision as well.
Definitely. There's so many elements to that are impressive. One, yes, he's got the players to adapt and adjust. That's slightly easy because you're dealing with professional players that want to win. But the ability to see and recognise what the changes need to be, that's the key. I think most people can analyse and can they recognise what's needed at the time, and to watch a game of football 45 minutes and go, all of a sudden we need to do these things, and to change them and have an instant impact. It's credit to him and his coaching staff.
Yeah, what a week it's been at Chelsea, though. You're saying credit to him and the coaching staff, the coaching change on New Year's Day, Enzo Maresca leaving Chelsea, the first ever Premier League manager to do it on New Year's Day, not the way you want to start the brand new year. Really, yeah. And then Manchester City on the horizon, no Caicedo, needing to change the goalkeeper as well on the day. What do you think is next for Chelsea? What happens now?
Well, obviously they've got to sit down and see where they're going to go next. You know, Liam Rossini has been spoken about. I'm sure there's a list that they've got there. They must have a list there. They've always got a list. Every club has a list because in football, you know, you can 8 games sometimes. Some has 8 games. Ange, I think, Forest had 8 games and he was sacked. So you've always got to have a list there. So I'm pretty sure they'll have their eye on someone. But they've got good players. You know, they're a young group of players, and I've said this a couple of years ago, I think that within 3 or 4 years, they might actually be ready to go and come win the league again at some stage and compete at least. They're not quite there yet, but they've won 2 trophies last year. Manager's gone, which is a surprise to everyone. He had a fantastic record. I think it was nearly 60% win ratio. And then, you know, you get the sack. It's a bit of a strange one, but that's Chelsea Football Club. They've changed manager consistently, but what they've done consistently is brought silverware in at the same time. Some clubs, you change the manager a lot, but nothing comes in, no trophies come in. So at the end of the day, they'll go again. The club's always bigger than any one person.
Yeah, but what the turning point for me was how close-knit of a group they are. The fact that Reece James spoke about after the game, players that were injured and weren't available travelled. So they're solidified as a group. And that's important, especially when the outside noise is the club's in turmoil. The players know that we need to stick together, and because there's a bigger objective in hand.
Well, I mean, as a group, how do they swerve now? Because they kind of bought into Maresca's philosophy, his plan for the club, his vision.
Well, they just follow players are good at that. They follow the manager and who's in charge. And we've seen that today with Callum. They delivered what was asked of them today. It'll be different again when there's a new manager. So they're very professional, they're elite performers. I understand what's needed, and hopefully the new manager comes in, as something of them that is familiar, because I think that is key. I don't think the new manager needs to go in there and change too much because it has been working. Yes, they're probably not challenging as well as they would like as a group, as a club, but they have had some success. So continue that success and don't change too much too soon.
And they'll come today somewhat successful after a turbulent week at Chelsea.